HS, Delicia Govender here from sunny Cape Town. Welcome to Andorra OpenLivingLab 2025. I'm super excited to journey with you.
Come with me to learn from the Bushmen of Southern Africa about the principles of regenerative economies.
So this used to be a derogative term for the people of Cape Town. Kham. It meant you are the lowest of the low. We discovered through the archives in the last few years that Kham is the original word for a Cape Bushman, and it also means lion. Tattoos was a big part of Bushman culture identity. Hutu tattoos originally was very, very ceremonial. This here is the name that was given to me in Khoi Khoi, Aro, Hua. It means spiritual healer. What not Khoi Khoi is an ancestral burning herb of all tribes of South Africa. Doesn't matter if you're Khoi, Zulu, Xhosa, everyone uses sacrament. Is the ancestral name for Port Khoi Khoi. Boom, to burn everlasting flowers. So this is in Khoi Khoi Uichai, and it means where the clouds gather. And on my shoulders you will see on both sides clouds with sacred geometry. So people in Cape Town, they call it the tablecloth. In our ancestral story we have a figure known as Enki, which is on the corner. Enki. So we believe that Enki produces this cloud on top of Table Mountain, and he sends the cloud in front of him. So when the cloud is on this mountain, we cannot see Enki arriving with his ships. This is a tattoo that's been, inspired me. The design inspired me, and I brought it also for the ear, specifically towards the ear, because I need to listen to people, listen to my ancestors. The root of David was produced into an ash, and that was one of the inks that was actually used for our people to tattoo one another. They would also work with a thorn of a certain tree, the camel thorn, and that would be used to inscribe the ink onto the scene. And I hope that the younger generation gets inspired into the esoteric customs of the Bushman culture, because we weren't just people in skin, fur. We had a highly evolved, artistic, spiritual nature. So this is my hope for the next young generation coming through, that they're going to be inspired to become artists and to work with ink, psychoactive medicine. So yeah.
Africa has the largest youth economy in the world. How exciting is that? Our youth have not forgotten. To forge a bright future, we draw on our past and memories and on our ancestors in our daily practices as we journey through what it is to be leaders in the 21st century. The art of storytelling through bodywork has continued, as you can see on my right hand with the Sonkwa Cape Lion. As Shaman Poli described, this is us burning the herb of life. Vuhu. Perhaps guidance and wisdom is not cognitive. Perhaps, like our ancestors and our elders teach us, it sits deeply rooted in the natural bodies around us. Look at this, how we constantly engage with nature. The founding father of the term the Rainbow Nation, Nelson Mandela, was the amazing president who guided us to a liberation and to freedom in this country, South Africa. It's beautiful to see that in our coat of arms, the words E, Ara, E are inscribed. What does this mean? United through our diversity. What we notice and what we find is that whether we're Hindu, Khoisan, European, Nguni, we're all united in our oneness. These practices have come from ancient times, whereby nations thrived through our interconnected nature, one with the cosmos and one with nature. I often ask myself, what would society look like, one shaped where we're not just connected to nature, but deeply in touch with each other? I challenge you today to ask yourself, how do I show up better, where my fellow human and nature is more connected to myself, where I think of the other before I think of I, where I think of the we, so that we are able to consider empathy and curiosity at the basis of our existence. Perhaps then, we're not looking at a society based on capitalism, but one where when we look back and we think, what has shaped us? What has made us who we are? What are those things that our ancestors, our grandparents, our elders have taught us? All of our stories carry these deep pools of wisdom. And perhaps, again, it's not about going forward, but going backward. Like the Sankofa symbol says in Ghana, we do not innovate from what we think. We innovate from what we know, what we have come from, and what we learn around us. Look at the bee pollination theory. What a stunning way to look at the world. The bee, a symbol of life for hundreds of years, shows us that it pollinates every single day. Let's take a deeper look at what this theory is. Let me tell you a story. High in the Pyrenees, just beyond a quiet mountain village, not unlike Andorra, there lived a beekeeper named Anai. Every morning, she'd walked out to her hives and listen, not just to the hum of bees, but to the rhythm of life itself. Her bees didn't take from the land, they gave back with every flight. As they pollinated wildflowers, fruit trees, and alpine herbs, they stitched the ecosystem together, quietly, consistently, and generously. One spring, Anai noticed something extraordinary. Her village's gardens grew more vibrant, the orchids yielded more fruit, and the local market began to thrive. Not because the bees demanded anything, but because they'd helped everything else flourish. They work together, she'd say, and they leave things bigger and better than they found them. That, my friends, is the heart of a regenerative economy. It's not about extraction or endless growth. It's about pollination, about business that nourish communities, and policies that restore the planet, about value that moves in circles, not straight lines. As Daniel Christian Wall once wrote, we need to design economies that behave more like ecosystems, adaptive, resilient, and regenerative. Just like this awesome beekeeper, we too can build systems that regenerate rather than deplete, systems that buzz with life, connection, and lasting abundance. I invite you to become a honeybee, just like our youth here on the African continent. I'm sure many of you have heard the word foraging. It's a buzzword at the moment in most farm-to-fork restaurants. This practice is ancient. What I'm busy picking over here is a num-num, a koi and san, plum, or peach. It is awesome. The practice here is you can only pick as much as you need, and basically that means one or two at a time from the tree. What that does is you get the best that nature has to offer. It's both sour, sweet, and juicy. This is how we're supposed to eat. I leave you with a question. How many of us still farm today? Ubuntu, I am because you are. This is the strength and the heart of the African spirit. Whether you're a security guard or a professor, you matter. The practice of biomimicry is learning from nature and adapting what nature has to offer. We see this happening in spaces in Botswana, where student architects have built self-cooling homes from the shell of the desert snail. It has worked wonders in that space. Biomimicry is all around us. What it means is that nature teaches us. It shows us how to be sustainable, circular. We purely have to listen deeply, take the time to be present, and to not enforce what we perceive to be the right way. What you'll see here is a cabbage leaf, and how beautiful the cabbage leaf not only protects itself to grow, but also self-waters. When I say self-water, I mean quite literally self-waters. The cabbage is one of our staple diets here in South Africa. We make it with many stews and curry. And when you watch how it operates in nature, it holds its own water body to be able to sustain itself in moments when there is not enough. How many of us can say that whether it's our housing structures or our policies are built with this level and depth of sustainability? How much more can we learn from nature if we take the time? to listen deeply. We do not need to wait for change. We are the change. So let us work together to create regenerative ecosystems where all of us can thrive. What you just witnessed is a full moon ceremony. We trance dance and we call in the rain. We feast, we take plant medicine, and we get beautiful stories that connect us to the ancestors. All of these goods that you see in front of you were foraged from an ocean side. Everything was made by fire, absolutely no electricity or gas, and the feasts are always abundant. We make sure that buhu, as always, is burning. Great art teacher, Simone by day and recycling superhero by night. Captain Copperheart is a pillar of strength and beacon of hope to our youth at risk in the Cape Flats. This lens can be applied to every sector. You ask, am I an advocate for Indigenous knowledge systems? I can't see any other way. I see our youth thriving as waste entrepreneurs. I'm looking at the next generation of employers, not employees. Did you know that the recycling economy in Africa is valued at $7 billion? I see how creative economy becoming stronger and better, where we are now converting storytelling into a modern day technique where we can use technology and AI to enable us to communicate these messages at a much deeper level. So you ask, do I believe in Indigenous knowledge systems? I believe that resilience has always been a deep part of the African spirit. 100%. I'm the biggest advocate for Indigenous knowledge systems. I think the only way forward is if we look backwards. After all I've shared with you today, ask yourself, what does it mean to you to empower? What does it mean to your organization, to your country? What does this word mean? Not just in theory, but in practice. Language is an important part of connecting. Today I'm going to teach you a word, K Gangans.
Gans means thank you, deep gratitude in Kweku Club. I'm doing that on purpose because in true Indigenous practice, we don't ever start without honoring our ancestors, where we come from and where we've come, and what has led us to where we are. Why this is important is because it's our theory of change. You'll hear this fancy word when you go through business, what's your theory of change? And for us, it was Indigenous knowledge systems, which seems strange. Like, how do you start an investing business on, I guess, Indigenous knowledge systems? It doesn't, those words don't exist next to each other, really.
We use the circle of courage as our theory of change.
What are we under management? How do we do this? We're currently $20 million under management. Again, Bushman.
Ever heard of an Indigenous vertical village?
The idea is that micro cities, we're calling it Bushman City in true like Khoisan fashion. So Bushman cities are ultimately these nodes of acupunctural spatial nodes. So where you've got a spatial point, it's an acupuncture point that regenerates that area. So we've got some in townships, we've got some in rural areas. In next year, you'll see probably about 3 of them in January come up.
Be sure to keep the principle of a honeybee so that we make profit for an impact.
Funded, as in we've never got money anywhere from anyone. We started with bartering banks. So bartering, what we all do, still do, but come from your mom sends you next door to get milk and you come back with sugar. Yeah, we just don't call it bartering. It's just a concept that's happening. We just don't call it something. So we started with that, and we started bartering our skills as young graduates ultimately at UCT with companies like Allen Gray, Deloitte, the French Embassy. And we said, look, you guys want to make an impact, but you're very far removed from the solution. So how about we as young people come together as a collective with our disciplines and we'll deliver these solutions.
At Push Local Ventures, we obsess about high impact activities. From unlocking the $7 billion recycling economy in Africa, to using AI for our youth to produce music as well as comic book figures that enable their social enterprises to thrive.
I just want to say, firstly, I appreciate your whole style, the way you conduct yourself. Everything. You're a dream to many people. Especially people of color, because we've been suppressed for so long in certain instances.
The truth is, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, and this organization cannot be prouder to honor it. In a world facing rising inequality and ecological collapse, the wisdom we most need is often the wisdom we've ignored. Indigenous knowledge systems, rooted in deep relationships with land, community, and time, offer blueprints for regenerative futures that go beyond sustainability. While global development models often treat poverty as a numbers game, Indigenous communities have long understood poverty not as the absence of income, but rather the erosion of relationships to land, culture, and each other. Their worldviews center reciprocity, not extraction, abundance, not scarcity. As the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2030 push us to end poverty, goal number 1, ensure sustainable communities, goal number 11, and take climate action, goal 13, we must realize that these goals cannot be achieved with the same systems that caused the crisis. As Vandana Shivas reminds us, Indigenous knowledge is not primitive. It is sophisticated ecological wisdom. It's time we listen, not as an act of charity, but as collaboration, because the regenerative futures we dream of are already alive in Indigenous practices. As I bring my keynote speech to a close, I invite you to consider a bridge, one that stretches from the mountains of Endora to the deserts and plains of southern Africa. The Khoisan, among the oldest living cultures on earth, have lived in harmony with their environment for thousands of years, guided by principles of balance, reciprocity, and deep respect for the land. Andorra, too, holds a legacy of resilience. Nestled in the Pyrenees, it preserved its sovereignty, not through conquest, but through diplomacy, adaptability, and stewardship of its natural resources. Both the Khoisan San and the Andorran people teach us that survival is not about domination, it's about relationship. In their own ways, both have shown the world what it means to live regeneratively, to protect what is sacred, and to pass wisdom forward across generations. As we build the regenerative future, may we walk with the humility to learn from the old ways and the courage to bring them into a new world to shape a bold future. Diverse nations unite. I remind you of our coat of arms and what is inscribed in it. May the Khoisan San spirit journey with you into this conference. What a beautiful and powerful moment it is to come together from all walks of life, to share our stories and wisdom, and to co-create something powerful. I trust that the conference will yield an abundance of celebration, the celebration of food, connection, and most importantly, one love. It's been such a pleasure being able to welcome you to Andorra. Gangans for having me as your keynote speaker. What an honor and a privilege it has been. I am Delicia Govender, I'm Songwa descendant. Welcome to the Open Living Labs 2025 in Andorra. Until we meet again, friends.